Hello, 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 and welcome to Nursing News You Can Use Live at 5. I'm Tina Baxter, your host, and I want to thank you for tuning in today and want to share with you a bit of news. So, you may have noticed that we haven't had a show in about 3 weeks now, and part of that is because of some personal issues and family matters and things like that. I had a death in the family and some other things that have happened. So, I haven't been able to come to you live, and I thought it was time, after doing this for a few years now and coming to you live almost every week. I think I've only missed like maybe 2 weeks ever. Um, I thought, you know what, I'm going to take a much needed break to focus in on the family, but I wanted to come back here today and get started. And my first thing I want to say to all of your nurses out there, you fellow nurses, happy Nurses Week. Happy Nurses Week. It's amazing that it's already here for us. Nurses Week started on the 6th, and I'm just so grateful to be a nurse and all the different things that we can do as a nurse. It's been the best profession ever for me. And if I wasn't a nurse, I don't think I could have come here and do what I'm doing here live with you. So I'm very grateful for that. So let's go ahead and get started for our show today. And our affirmation for today, just to say this for all of our nurses, celebrate the magnificent creature that you are. I'm going to say that again, fellow nurses. Celebrate the magnificent creature that you are. That is from our You Are a Badass calendar for 2025 by Jen Sincero. Appreciate this calendar. I always like to start off with a bit of an affirmation. And let's go ahead and get into the news. Now, we're going to have a very short news day today because, again, still dealing with some things, but I wanted to make sure that I came back, particularly because it's Nurses Week. And I said, I just couldn't miss Nurses Week. That would be really silly to miss Nurses Week and to say Happy Nurses Week to all my fellow nurses. So I wanted to make sure I had a chance to do that. And so let's go ahead and get to our news. But gosh, I feel I missed you all. I feel like you. Maybe you haven't missed me, but I've certainly missed you. All right, let's get into our news for today. And here is our first story. Let's start out in the good old state of Florida, because why not? I found this interesting, and again, we've covered this a couple weeks ago or a few weeks ago about some of the problems that are happening in Florida as a state with their nursing schools and things like that. So there's a new bill that has been proposed. This is and one. Okay, this is from the Florida legislature. And it says the Florida legislature passed a bill at the 11th hour of its regular session that could shutter low performing nursing schools in an attempt to improve the state's standing on the national nursing exam. Before the legislative session started, lawmakers sought answers from nursing school administrators about why Florida has the worst passing rate on the National Council of Licensure Examination, or the NCLEX. A proposal creating harsher penalties for nursing programs seemed unlikely to pass until the House inserted it into another bill before the clock struck midnight on May the 2nd, the deadline to take up policy bills. If DeSantis signs House Bill 1427, nursing schools with passage rates 10 percentage points below the national average would end up on probation, and they would have 2 years to improve those scores before getting shut down. Although Florida's NCLEX passing rates are the highest they've been in a decade, the 2024 rates for registered nurses and practical nurses to get their licenses, 84.9% and 80.78% respectively, are well under the national average, which was 91.16% for RNs and 88.38% for PNs, according to an annual report from the Florida Center for Nursing. Members, this is just a great bill that will set us up to allow for nursing education to be the number one in the state of Florida, whereas now we are number 50, said Palm City Republican Representative Toby Overdorf on the House floor Friday. This is where we need to be working hard and getting to that new level of nursing. The Florida Board of Nursing placed 16 programs on probation in 2024, 9 of which were for-profit institutions, according to the Florida Department of Health. The board terminated 4 programs last year. Additionally, nursing program directors who failed to submit annual reports by November 1st, detailing their number of applicants, retention rates, accreditation status, and scores for a newly required exit exam could face disciplinary actions, including revocation of their nursing license and fines up to $10,000. So we'll keep an eye on that and see what happens. But other states may also follow suit, so we'll see. But I just thought I'd share that little bit of news. So if you're in Florida, might be want to looking into that. Okay. All right, this is coming from Ignite's long-term care news, and I thought this was kind of interesting. I wanted to share this with you. And it says, nursing home off the hook wins rare lawsuit seeking $114 million. A New York nursing home has won the first class action lawsuit in its county in recent times, which would have cost the provider millions in resident damages. Jurors in an Orange County court last week sided with Sapphire Nursing and Rehab after nearly 900 people claimed negligence and insufficient staffing, according to a local news outlet. The residents, who were represented by a White Plains, New York law firm, were seeking $114 million in the suit, which was originally filed in 2018. So I do want to point out this is pre-pandemic. So for those of you who are thinking that a lot of this is all coming out of the pandemic, no, there were problems identified pre-pandemic. And so I think that's important for us to note. Attorneys for the Goshen, New York nursing home said the facility is breathing a sigh of relief. Our client felt vindicated that after a long and expensive litigation, the jury dismissed the plaintiff's claim, said attorney Caitlin Robin. She added that the verdict went in Sapphire's favor due to the facility seeking experienced class counsel, as well as collecting pretrial evidence that supported their defense of having adequate staffing measures. The defendants successfully countered the allegations of understaffing by eliciting testimony from the administrator, director of nursing, a managing member of the operator that supported that the facility was continually increasing staff. Lawyers representing the plaintiffs were from Finkelstein, Blankenship, Frey, Pearson, and Garber, a firm that currently has 3 other class action suits pending against Sapphire. So they're not out of the woods yet. There's 3 others, but they did win this one. In one of those cases, Janak versus Goshen Operations, residents and their families are alleging in court documents that Sapphire's care quality dwindled following an ownership change in late 2017, resulting in resident neglect and poor staffing levels. One resident's son claimed he witnessed residents being fed cold food and given inadequate opportunities to use the restroom and to bathe. Some residents also were forced to sit in their own excrement or develop bed sores from being left unattended for extended periods, he claimed in court filings. A second resident's family also claimed a decline in service and staffing. New York isn't the only place to have experienced such class action claims. The U.S. District Court for the Central District of California in December, for example, gave final approval to a class action settlement in Heredia versus Sunrise Senior Living, the largest class settlement to date in a class action staffing case. The suit, originally filed in 2018, and again, I want to say pre-pandemic, resulted in an $18.2 million final settlement and involved allegations of deceptive staffing practices in assisted living communities. The claim alleged that as a result of Sunrise corporate staffing policies and procedures, residents did not receive the services they needed or paid for, and that residents were placed at substantial risk. So again, that's important litigation. I didn't even know they were doing class action lawsuits and nursing home litigation. That was certainly news for me. But just to let you know, these are some of the things that are coming up in our news cycle for today. Here's our next story, and this is our nurse making a difference. And I love having stories about nurses doing well, and how great to have this story for Nurses Week. It says, Massachusetts grandmother 81 to graduate with master's in nursing. I think that's wonderful. And just because it's Nurses Week, and I always like to show something great, I do want to kind of show you her picture, because I think this is awesome. So you can just see her smiling face. So let me show her picture real quick. Show my window. Here we go. Isn't this great? Look at that. I just look at her face. She's just smiling so happy. Obviously, this is probably her, I think maybe her daughter with her, but 81 years old, graduating with her master's in nursing. Let's read the story. And it says, Eileen Montecalvo, a Malden resident and lifelong learner, is set to graduate with a master's degree in nursing at 81 years old after being inspired by a newspaper photo decades ago. Montecalvo was a 29-year-old mother of three when she saw a picture that changed her life's path. On this particular day, there's a picture on the front page of a nursing school graduating class. I looked at the picture and I noticed that they were not all young kids in this picture. There were older people in there. Montecalvo showed the picture to her husband, John, who encouraged her to consider nursing. He said, "Is that something you might be interested in?" I said, "Well, I never thought about it, but I have three little kids here." And he said, "Well, so do I." And first of all, that's really awesome. Kudos to you, sir. Anyway, let's go on. So this marked the beginning of Montecalvo's long career in nursing, supported by her husband. She became the first of three generations in her family to work in the field, with her daughter and grandchildren also becoming nurses. Montecalvo has never stopped learning, advancing from an LPN to an RN and earning her associate's, bachelor's, and now her master's degree. So when I was 78 years old, I stopped working, and my grandchildren were saying to me, "You need to keep your brain going." Montecalvo said, in just over a week, she will graduate from Worcester State University with a master's of science in nursing. It's a profession, but it's a calling for me. It's a calling to help people, she said. With her new degree, Montecalvo plans to volunteer as a tutor to help the next generation of nurses find their calling. Congratulations to her. I think she's an excellent nurse making a difference. And Miss Eileen, if you ever hear this and see this, I would love to have your story on our other show, the Nurse Shark Academy show, because I just think this is a fascinating story. But I'm going to go ahead and stop the share. But I love her, the smile that she has on her face. And I just think that's great. Congratulations to you for making a difference. I think that's wonderful. So that ends our news for today. Let's get into some announcements real quick. And then we'll be gone. Okay, so those of you who don't know, but I wanted to let you know we've got some exciting things happening here at Baxter Professional Services and the Nurse Shark Academy. So let me pull up our schedule. And on Wednesday, May the 14th, don't forget to tune in every Wednesday for our show. I'm excited to have our show. And then we have coming up on the 21st is our BLS certification class. So if you need your CPR training and you've not had CPR training before, this is a class to be in on May the 21st. It's our BLS full class for the certification. If you've never had CPR, head on over to Baxter Professional Services HealthEducation.com. You can certainly sign up for that. Also on the 21st, we have our basic TB validation class. So if you're needing to get your TB validation completed for your employer, now's a great time to get that done. So that is now on the 21st. And then we also have on the 21st, we have our home health aid CNA information class as well. So if you're interested in becoming a CNA or a home health aide, it's a great time for you to get into our information class to get ready for our June 2024 cohort. So 2025 cohort, I should say. So if you want to be in the June class, now's the time to get registered. Head on over to Baxter Professional Services, HealthEducation.com. You can sign up for our home health aid or our CNA training class. There, you put in your inquiry. Now's a good time to do that. On the 28th, we do have our TB instructor course. So if you would like to become a TB instructor and you have had your basic validation class and it's current, your certification is current for at least 6 months, and you are a healthcare professional with a license like an LPN, RN, and or you have a 4-year healthcare degree, then you can sit for this class and become a TB instructor as well. So those are some of the events we have coming up. We'll have more added to our calendar for May and June. I look forward to sharing that with you. All right. And so, if there's any events that are coming up for Nurses Week or anything that's coming out for you in the community, let me know. I'd love to share that with our audience here, particularly that are here. And so, again, happy Nurses Week to everyone. If you have any announcements coming up for what's happening in your neck of the woods, and you want me to give a shout on the show, let me know. But with that, I'm just going to leave you this last little thing, and then I'll see you next week. Ready to turn your nursing skills into a thriving business? At the Nurse Shark Academy, we give you expert strategies, real startup guidance, and the support to go from employee to empowered entrepreneur. Join us and build the nurse-owned business of your dreams. Start today and join us at the nursesharkacademy.biz. All right, so please, if you're watching us on YouTube, please hit the subscribe button and leave us a comment. If you're watching us on Facebook, give us a like, share this content, and leave us a comment. We want to say hello to you. And don't forget our other show, the Nurse Shark Academy Show. You can watch us on YouTube or on wherever you get your podcast and your podcast platform. We appreciate all the love. We'll see you next time and have a great rest of your week. And again, happy Nurses Week.